we have an important announcement to make. I am very excited to launch Sigma Latam. That's right, a third summit in Latin America that will complement Sigma in Europe and Sigma in Asia.
Tenemos una fuerza laboral fuerte en Malta, en Kiev y en Manila. Es hora de que Sigma aumente nuestra cartera y se expanda más allá de nuestra zona de confort, cubriendo todas las horas horarias con las nuevas oficinas en las Américas.
As cidades cotadas foram Buenos Aires e São Paulo. Acabamos escolhendo a segunda por duas razões.
Reason number one, there's always a great presence of media and events in offices in Buenos Aires, and we don't want to replicate more or of the same or compete with our friends.
Segunda, o grande potencial de mercado e a atual possibilidades de regulamentação dos jogos no Brasil nos darão mais motivos para decidir estabelecer nosso escritório lá.
Brazilian Federal Deputy Pompeo de Matos, for instance, believes casinos will be a vaccine for coronavirus, stating that taxing gaming money could jumpstart the country's economy in the wake of COVID-19.
Ele machuca a economia. E eu diria assim, para nós até ajudar a levantar a economia depois que passar a pandemia, uma das alternativas é, inclusive, legalizar os jogos. É uma alternativa perfeitamente possível, viável, eu diria assim, até necessária.
Assuntos como este, dentre outros, farão parte dos nossos debates em setembro.
Moving forward, we hope that our three pillar shows, Sigma in Malta, Sigma in Manila, and eventually Sigma in Sao Paulo, will pave the way for iGaming communities to learn from, as well as do business with each other. I look forward to contribute to this and make iGaming truly a global phenomenon.
iGaming is truly becoming a global business. Europe, for instance, has become saturated, and gaming companies are starting to look at other continents, particularly Asia, with a market of over 4 billion potential players. That means you, as an iGaming professional, have to attend shows across the globe, and not just in one continent. Old shows must make room for new shows in emerging markets. In this short video, we will outline why Sigma Malta, Sigma Latam, and Sigma Manila are worth investing in. Here's 3 main reasons. Reason 1, emerging trends. When we started Sigma back in 2014, we strongly believed that Sigma must embrace all 3 verticals. Today's super affiliate, for instance, is fast becoming an operator, thanks to lower barriers to entry. Sigma is and will remain the only 360-degree show that brings the entire industry, from C-level executive to super affiliates, under one roof. Given also the significant presence of integrated resorts in Asia and Latam, moving forward, we've decided to include land-based gaming. Reason 2. Emerging hubs. Sigma is held in 3 iGaming hubs. Malta, the gaming hub in Europe. Manila, the undisputed hub in Asia. And Sao Paulo, a region with vast potential. Reason 3. Emerging tech. Moving forward, we're merging 2 large expos under one roof. Our iGaming show Sigma, as well as our emerging tech summit AIBC, will take place at the same venue and on the same dates, breaking boundaries for the 2 verticals to learn and feed off each other. So what are you waiting for? Get in touch with us today and let's work together. Our 3 summits will open new doors for you. Welcome to Sigma. Welcome to the world's iGaming festival.
We have an important announcement to make. I am very excited to launch Sigma Latam. That's right, a third summit in Latin America that will complement Sigma in Europe and Sigma in Asia.
Tenemos una fuerza laboral fuerte en Malta, en Kiev y en Manila. Es hora de que Sigma aumente en nuestra cartera y se expanda más allá de nuestra zona de confort, cubriendo todas las horas horarias con las nuevas oficinas en las Américas.
As cidades cotadas foram Buenos Aires e São Paulo. Acabamos escolhendo a segunda por duas razões.
Reason number one, there's always a great presence of media and events in offices in Buenos Aires, and we don't want to replicate more or of the same or compete with our friends.
Segunda, o grande potencial de mercado e a atual possibilidades de regulamentação de jogos no Brasil nos darão mais motivos para decidir estabelecer nosso escritório lá.
Brazilian Federal Deputy Pompeo de Matos, for instance, believes casinos will be a vaccine for coronavirus, stating that taxing gaming money could jumpstart the country's economy in the wake of COVID-19.
Ele machuca a economia. E eu diria assim, para nós até ajudar a levantar a economia depois que passar a pandemia, uma das alternativas é, inclusive, legalizar os jogos. É uma alternativa perfeitamente possível, viável, eu diria assim, até necessária.
Assuntos como este, dentre outros, farão parte dos nossos debates em setembro.
Moving forward, we hope that our three pillar shows, Sigma in Malta, Sigma in Manila, and eventually Sigma in Sao Paulo, will pave the way for iGaming communities to learn from, as well as do business with each other. I look forward to contribute to this and make iGaming truly a global phenomenon.
Well, we're back, guys. We did have a slight interruption there on our YouTube live stream, so thank you for bearing with us as we did undergo one of the risks of going with live. Thank you for staying with us. Now, if you are watching us on YouTube or Facebook or on our AIBC Summit website, I would like to direct you to our swap card platform where you can interact with other delegates throughout the rest of the conference, which we have a few hours left. We will be giving out some polls as well for you all to interact and engage with, and our speakers will be on there as well if you have any extra questions for them. Now, our next set of sessions will be taking a look at the tech updates so far this year across the world, not just in Asia, but also in the US and Europe. A huge thank you to our sponsors of this session, Coinfield.
Emerging Technology, US versus Asia, with Yuri Cataldo, Innovation Engagement at Autodesk, Jana Balkin, CIO at Integration Works Asia Co., and Peter Ng, founder, Blockchain Space.
So one of the benefits of having such a digital conference means we get to have speakers from all over the world. So this next panel, we have Yuri, who's joining us on the line from Boston, Jana from Hong Kong, and Peter from the Philippines. So everyone, I want to jump straight in because this is a topic which a lot of people have had a lot of anticipation for. Yuri, I want to start with you from the US perspective. 2020 has been such a challenging year, a year with a lot of pivots that have needed to be included for blockchain and emerging tech projects. How have you seen the technology sector really evolve in 2020?
Sure. So first off, Jessica, thank you so much for having me. This is fantastic. It's hard to look at let's say the entire tech scene holistically without having the big elephant in the room, which is COVID-19, because COVID has changed everything, especially when it started coming up especially in the US in late February, early March. So what I've seen, like pre-COVID and post-COVID, have kind of changed a lot of things. But right now, what's popping up is the importance of just digital readiness across everything. So from online shopping to robotic deliveries, digital contactless payments, remote work, supply chain management, telehealth, all of it is being affected by what's happening with COVID.
And that's a really interesting point, because I think a lot of industries that maybe particularly didn't feel the need to adapt or evolve might have had to feel this extra push, especially when it comes to removing the middleman or any additional third parties. Peter, I want to turn to you now in particular, because you are based in the Philippines. How is the tech sector looking in the Philippines? What's your perspective on everything?
Thanks, Jessica, and thank you for having me as well. Just like for Yuri, you could imagine that COVID has really changed quite a lot on the ground here. But actually, if anything in the tech sector that I work in financial technology itself, so in fintech, it's probably for the better. We've kind of been looking for that extra boost for adoption. And so being here in the Philippines, we're a very cash-rich society where we have a lot of sentimental value towards cash. So it's very hard to actually drive people to see value in actually adopting digital cash without actually adding substantial added value to it. So just to back up what that actually means is, so the way that digital cash has actually been adopted up until now is really by adding services that are really add a lot of value in your everyday processes. So things like ride hailing, when Uber and Grab came into the market, people were very eager to get into use their services. And one way to actually use their services is actually to use their payments platform. So you have to actually get into digital cash that way. Another way that we're seeing is obviously like e-commerce is really taking off right now. And although I think it's probably had some hiccups in the first couple of months of COVID, so what traditionally is quite a challenge here is actually logistics. And so having people actually, go out there, pick up packages and deliver them, that's actually going to be a challenge. People are actually kind of risking their lives out there right now. But yeah, we definitely see an increase in e-commerce transactions coming up right now. Maybe just top it off. So we've really been looking for drivers in terms of how to get the government on board, and to get kind of like local support from regulators and so on. And this has been a fantastic driver, basically, to get people to adopt digital means for, let's say, there is an example in our city here in Makati where the student financial aid is actually being distributed to e-wallets right now, because the students obviously can't go to school. They can't actually go to physical outlets to be able to actually receive their payments. And luckily, the local city has actually got digital IDs of their students. And so this is becoming like a great example of like how to, onboard people into this new digital system.
And that's a really interesting use case as well, because it is targeting a younger generation, one which is probably more acknowledging of new technologies and maybe more eager to learn about something new, especially when it comes to being cashless and looking at a more fast way of a payment method. Jana, I want to turn to you now and ask, if we look at the technology sector and some of the developments we have noticed, have you seen any particular sectors that maybe have outperformed others so far this year?
From my perspective, at first I would say thank you very much for joining here this conversation as well. I have to say I'm more from a practice point of view. I'm coming really to connect the industries together. So it's I see here a lot of potential in the IoT sector, bringing together all the technologies, and I'm more really from an end-to-end process point of view perspective, not only based on blockchain technologies. But what I also see is an issue on and trust. What is ongoing the next time? What is the decision you have to take? How to take the risk and so on, and how to overcome the situation. I'm absolutely with Peter. We need the government, which is supporting, which give also some money, give people a chance, also all the startups and so on, that they can survive. So this is currently the issue what I see. So how to create a basis to survive, and to create trust and going forward. So not being now stuck with the situation with COVID and whatever, will, in my opinion, not the last crisis we will get.
And what's been interesting speaking to all three of you now is some of the core fundamentals that you have mentioned are all very similar, but actually when it comes to maybe some examples, they've all been quite different. So I'm going to ask all three of you now, and we're going to go around separately, any game changers that you're able to identify so far in the tech space so far, and maybe a challenge that has been put forward for that game changer that you've identified. Yuri, I'd love to start with you.
Sure. So at my work at Autodesk, we spend a lot of time looking at the manufacturing and construction industry. So just speaking at both of those in general, there's a lot of startups that are coming up, and the convergence of technologies is actually quite fascinating that have been sped up because of COVID. So, Boston Dynamics is always top of mind just because Spot is popping up at a lot of places. So Spot has been in Singapore, helping people socially distance. They've been implementing Spot on multiple construction sites that allow them to site monitor, to do site scanning, to pull a lot of data from what's happening in that on the construction site. And they're also able to help the construction workers stay safe, watch for potential collisions, not only between the equipment, but also what's happening in the actual building itself, and then transfer all of that data back to the original BIM design. And so there's a lot of, again, convergence and moving of different kind of technologies, which is absolutely fantastic and exciting, particularly in those. Watching these older industries now suddenly adopt a lot of the stuff and move up. The challenges that are coming with, let's say, construction and manufacturing is just that there's a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of, let's say, contingency workers and additional areas that have to plug in to make everybody talk to one another and work to one another. It's not a singular unit. There's a lot of, like, putting together a building. There are hundreds of subcontractors, each having their own companies, their own ways of doing things, which is why traditionally construction has had a lot of delays. So how do you seamlessly integrate all of that data, all of that technology into one stream that allows all of the subcontractors to talk and to get them involved? There's a lot of challenges involved in that, but it's especially with COVID, things are moving up rapidly because digitization of everything is taking place.
And I imagine for subcontractors as well, if we look at kind of gig economies, having something which is automized on the blockchain, or a process which is more on a ledger and recorded, is actually more encouraging for these 0-hour contract workers as well.
Yes, it's so there's a lot of use cases with smart contracts that are coming up right now that we're seeing. So, right. So let's say Spot is running around and taking in snapshots of what's happening. They'll know exactly with the movement of machines and equipment, some of which are running autonomously, how to pay contractors at what time. And so, yeah, there's a lot of great use cases that we have seen pop up, which is fantastic.
Fantastic. And Jana, I would love to turn to you now and ask you your perspective of a game changer that you're able to identify, and maybe a challenge that game changer might encounter.
I go just similar to that, what also Yuri is telling is about data. Everything is about data, and to enable data. And also what I see with the blockchain in general is also to enable decentralized organization and run around really to use the decentralized way of working together in a trustable way. So that means not everybody needs to know each other, more working really together based on project-based level, which will be founded separately, step by step, on milestone approaches. So not big amounts of money will be released. Maybe step-by-step, single releases, single packages of budget will be provided to the teams. A challenge for everybody how to manage this and how to point to that and how to get the data and whatever, and how to kind of contracts, yeah. But this is a lot of open question marks, how to go ahead and how to find the right way to get this budget also for his own organization. So it is the government. I didn't think so. It is there somewhere a central organization where you can post just your project. I didn't think so, but anyhow, something in the middle. Yeah, it's will be maybe right. So a lot of confusion, but also on the marketing point of view, a lot of people have to change. Yeah, it's a completely different way now how to attract people that you provide the right services, whatever. So this is also a change. You didn't meet the people anymore in person. You need a different way. And you need to invest here. Marketing budget, I think not so much. People, mainly on the technology sector, they are proud to develop technology, but not really marketing. So it's maybe something what needs also to be changed. This is the game changer for me with this COVID, to move in a completely digital world where you meet in the past people by chance in a cafe or whatever, a meet up, whatever, where you find ways to talk, not making the cold acquisition parade. So now you have to move to find a smarter way to get your your project space up and running. So this is also a challenge, but I think.
And it's a catalyst as
if
well. It's
somebody
really,
will like it.
Yeah, speeding up the process completely. And now, Peter, I want to turn to you because you are working and running a blockchain and fintech specifically co-working space out of the Philippines. So you must be interacting with some really fascinating projects. Are there any that you're able to identify that really are interesting and innovative this year?
So firstly, I absolutely love Yuri and Jana's responses, and I love how blockchain has completely dominated everyone's solutions, because obviously I work in this space, and I'm a huge advocate for it. I think not specifically for the in the Philippines, but I think there are a couple of projects a couple of areas in blockchain that I'm specifically looking at with a very, very keen eye. And I myself, as someone who works in the education space, I dabble kind of in and out of it, just because of my own interest. And so the two spaces that I look at are, one, decentralized finance, so what we call DeFi in the industry. So that's basically loans, savings, instruments, exchange platforms that exchange different assets without basically the need of any kind of third-party intermediaries. And so I think that space is really heating up right now, and it's kind of carving out its niche. It's still very much in its infancy, but you've seen a huge amount of adoption basically in the last couple of years, and it's got huge amounts of capital backing the space. So there are some really big companies that will possibly come out of this space. So DeFi is 100% on the radar. And then actually something that's not too far off this is actually I'm looking at the gaming space, and you guys will know this very well at AIBC. So I'm actually looking at blockchain-based kind of gaming initiatives. And there are a couple of projects, actually one here called Battle Races, run by a friend of mine. But basically the idea is that these are kind of like regular games run on regular platforms. So let's say on PC, but now what you're doing is you're introducing in-game items that are actually tradable on blockchain. So, these, which is something that we couldn't do in the past. And these tradable items can be things like land or collectibles or things like weapons in the game. And I personally have actually traded. I made my first land trade yesterday, actually. So I've been holding it for about a year. And what that means is actually you need to firstly believe in the game, the team. You have to believe that this this community is really going to survive over the coming years, and then that you believe that someone will value your land, more in the future. And it's amazing. So yesterday I actually flipped a piece of land for quite a profit, for about 2-3 times what I originally spent on it last year. And I think that's kind of like proof that this space is actually maturing and it actually has value. Now, if you couple the two, so if you put blockchain-based gaming together with DeFi, so with decentralized finance, now you have these exchanges which don't need to be kind of like monitored by any central party. But what it means is that these assets that we're trading in these games can now be freely exchanged for other items in the whole world. And it's if you can imagine what the potential of that would be is huge. So suddenly I'm selling my land, on an open marketplace to someone across the other side of the world, and I'm exchanging that for, I don't know, like a weapon in like the latest first-person shooter or something, and that's I think once you open your mind to these kind of opportunities, you understand, like, wait a minute, this could be huge. So I'm very excited about those two.
Completely, and it opens a whole new conversation when it comes to tradable tokens, fungible assets, and then even tokenization of real world assets. Definitely the decentralized finance topic is something which it has huge focus so far this year, and I think continuing on, you're right, we are going to see this a lot more. Now we do have to wrap up, and I just want to direct one more question to Yuri before we have to close, because we discussed this briefly off air when we compared the markets maturing, as we've mentioned, and now we are in 2020, but even considering 2017 when a lot of people did enter the space, it was known as the ICO craze, and we did see a lot of business investments come in, but this was also where we saw potentially some bad actors come into the place, a lot of projects that maybe didn't close off their roundings or even complete the project tasks that they were confirming they were going to do. How has that changed the way that businesses invest or they look to network with other companies? How has that impacted the space?
Right. So one of the things I loved, at least about 2017, is that the ICO craze, what it did was provide an alternative funding source for startups, which was desperately needed. But you're right. Unfortunately, a lot of bad actors jumped in there. There was a lot of scammers, and a lot of the projects that came from 2017, I don't know very many that actually still have survived and produced an actual product. But it did create a lot of buzz, which then, the ICOs led to STOs and IEOs and other kind of initials. But what's been exciting about that is now we're watching a lot of large corporations, very much like what Peter mentioned in the DeFi space, even to traditional banks, looking for not just like what is the technology, but how can this technology work for us? And I know, Bank of America, JP Morgan, a lot of the traditional banks have now put a lot of patents out there in the blockchain space because they want to be involved. They want to get along with the space, for good or bad, but they recognize the use case of this. And we're watching a lot of that evolve now in 2020, where use cases are coming up and it's not just a flash in the pan, ICO type of environment.
You're right, it's certainly interesting. And I think the patent debate is a whole other aspect. I would love for this conversation to be longer, that we could break down, but thank you so much, Yuri, Yana, Peter. It was amazing to talk to you. That's unfortunately all we have time for now, but really appreciate your insights today. We had a fantastic conversation, and I'm sure our viewers learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, now we've learned a little bit about what has been built. It's trying to look at a specific use case in a particular sector. Something that both Peter and Yuri mentioned in that panel was just that some examples of systems with tradable tokens, for example, which can interact and get people exposed to the blockchain industry in a way that maybe they'll have more use cases and a wider case of adoption. So our next 5-minute presentation will give a perfect overview of why the gaming industry is so imperative for the blockchain space. Let's take a look.
Let's play. streaming games on the blockchain with Blair Agrodrich, CEO at Splinterland.
Hey there, my name is Jesse Reich, and I'm CEO and co-founder of Splinterlands.com. Splinterlands is actually two things. So the first thing that we are a game development studio. There's about 6 of us that work here full-time, another 15 or so that are contractors, and we build games that are on a blockchain. So my partner and I, we wanted to go do something to bring people into cryptocurrency. We love crypto. There's so much freedom, both economic and social freedom, that can come from using blockchain and using cryptocurrency. Your ability to transact across borders, it's so much easier when you're doing this with cryptocurrency than trying to send, fiat around the world. We wanted it to be more than just speculating on the price of tokens. We wanted this to be a game. We wanted it to be something engaging that you can sink your teeth into, with a history and lore and characters and people that you start to feel for, more than just, what price am I going to bid today? And there also happens to be this giant problem in gaming, in that, you buy a game, you spend $60, you download this thing, and you play it for a month, you beat the game, and then you stop playing. And all of the time you spent, you got entertainment for it, but you didn't get anything of value for it. And we don't like that. We think that the value can be there, the entertainment can be there, and actually we're introducing this concept of your ability to earn. And not just to earn like trinkets or something, but something of real value. Somehow the game studios didn't want you to be able to realize the property ownership of the things that you were collecting. So you couldn't trade them, you couldn't sell them. And so, yeah, it was convenient, but you lost that ownership. And by using blockchain, we can really facilitate, now you can play anytime because it's a digital game. You can trade and sell these things, and the cards have actual real world value. You can convert these to various cryptos and convert that to fiat if you wanted. And ultimately, we're unlocking this feature of you can earn every win. So what happened when we did this? When we ran this experiment, and here are the results. So on the left here, you see DEX by value, and you see player account names and the total value of their deck. And you can see that in order to make it onto the top 10 most valued decks in the game, you have to own a collection worth a minimum of $34,000. And that to us is remarkable, because it shows that the players understand that this isn't just simply some entertainment. Because I don't think that anybody would spend $34,000 just for the privilege of playing our game. But I think that they recognize that these are things that you can own. These are rare collectibles that, there's only so many elemental phoenixes that are ever going to be printed. But players still hold on to them, the way that with the physical games, people used to buy boxes to unpack later because they're hoping that, things will get scarce. So just in the 2 years that we've been doing this, you can see that our alpha packs went from $2 retail to $8.80 on the secondary market. And similarly, it's not quite as drastic, but the betas, which only sold out maybe 6 months ago, those things are up to $3 now. So we have this really active market. You go out there and you can trade all these cards. These are the gold foils, so you have like a 2% chance of getting a gold foil card. And you can see this is a really active trading day for us. We had a $14,000 traded back and forth. That's not money from players to us. That's money going player to player. And that was in a total of 13,000 and almost 500 transactions. So it's a pretty active market. The slower days, it might be $4,000, $5,000, and on the big days, it's over 10,000. But it's one of the most active NFT marketplaces in the entire world. So everything that I've shown you so far is about our game, but we can do more than that. It doesn't just have to be our game. Once we figured out all these collectibles and how you can do non-fungible tokens and ownership and how we can accept multiple cryptos, it doesn't have to just be our cards. We can go work with other companies to put their intellectual property in our game. So now you're collecting superheroes or sports stars. And there are different ways that we can use these cards. It doesn't have to just be strictly cards, but this could be your inventory in an RPG. And hopefully that gives you some sense of it's not just a single game and a single product. We're really looking to expand into a whole platform for games. So that's what I wanted you guys to know so far. If you'd, I'd love for you to come play, come check out our game, come see what we're doing, come help onboard some normies into cryptocurrency, and use this as kind of a gateway to do that. We all hang out in Discord. There's about 5,000 of us that live in Discord, and hopefully you'll come join us at discord.splinterlands.com. Check out our game, and be sure to message me in there. I go by Agrod. Thanks so much, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you. That was a really informative 5-minute presentation on blockchain use case in the gaming sphere. Now, if you are watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or on our AIBC Summit YouTube site, our website, I would like to direct you over to our swap card platform where you can interact and engage with other speakers. We do have some speakers from previous panels that are on the chat now. KD, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to reach out to any of our speakers as well throughout today and ask any questions that you might have. Now, we've looked at particular use cases in the blockchain sphere, especially when it comes to tokenization, but let's now take a look at things on a bigger scale when it comes to smart cities. This next presentation is moderated by Christina from Cointelegraph magazine. Let's take a look.
Rising Stars, Emerging Markets Leveraging Emerging Technology, with Marcelo Garcia, expert UN Smart Cities, and Ferris Owis, co-founder at Instigation Protocol.
Okay, so the term smart cities, I think a lot of people, when they hear it, they tend to think of very high-tech developed nations. But here we are today to talk about how digital solutions are helping emerging countries. So I wanted to start the panel by asking a couple of questions. How exactly are these digital solutions helping in emerging countries? What are the characteristics of a smart city? And how can emerging markets collaborate with more advanced regions to accelerate the technology adoption? Maybe start with Marcelo.
Yeah, so hello everybody, thanks for the invitation. Great to be here. It's the first time that I'm doing one of those fireside chats without the fire, but just sticking to chat. So congratulations and pushing forward and getting the message out there. Answering your question, what I usually tell people is that all cities are smart, because the smarts are actually and the inhabitants. You just want to make sure that the way people interact with services in the city, they are not impeded by unnecessary frictions, and you can flow in terms of the information that is relevant at the right time in the right context. So if governments at municipal, state, and federal levels did nothing, cities will become smarter anyway through private initiatives. You're just going to have more apps and more solutions that people download because that's something that defined by themselves. They vote with their feet. That's something that they prefer to have as making their lives easier. What governments can do, and the United Nations and lots of other institutions, is really trying to make sure that the best products bubble up, that they get the right level of support and promotion. And we identify all those small processes, and it's really from the minute to the gigantic, but it tends to start with small steps. Which processes out of the myriad that I have out there have the greatest impact or the lowest investment?
Okay. Can you give us some examples of those?
Well, the best example that I usually share in this kind of conferences is that the city of Stockholm created an app, and lots of people started coming up with ideas on how the app could be used. And the smartest thing about the app is, in fact, a sticker that you put on rubbish bins. I haven't been following the app for a very long time, but this is from 4 or 5 years ago. You'd go to smart city conferences and you have lots of companies trying to sell super smart rubbish bins that have a sensor with a radar that will tell you that it's half full. So you send a message to a central server and then the truck gets redirected. In Stockholm, apparently, they put a QR code on a sticker. They put the sticker on the rubbish bin. The citizens who are stimulated to be more engaged take pictures of the QR code when they notice that a bin is full, and that information goes into the server and everything is smoother. So, counterintuitively, for me, the smartest thing out of the system is having the intelligence to crowdsource lots of efforts that minimizes the expenditure. And of course, when you have sensors inside trash is going to get dirty, it's going to break, it's expensive to maintain, and it creates lots of supply chains that are completely irrelevant and necessary. The stickers are going to be there for years and it'll be functional without any maintenance required for all of those years. And you're stimulating your citizens to be more engaged and save money, right? You're basically telling them, if you don't take those pictures when the trash is full, your bill is going to be higher because you need to get trucks to go into routes that make no sense. And it's something that is so easy for you to do that if you don't, you kind of have no right to complain afterwards. So it's a nice, a positive catch-22 feedback loop that I appreciate very much.
Very, very
I think something Marcelo highlighted, and by the way, hello everyone. Marcelo, just I've never seen you look this sharp, and I like it.
I made an effort.
Yeah, you did. I appreciate that, man. I do. I think something subtle there that Marcelo said that I wanted to kind of like hone in on based on your question, which centered around emerging markets. And how Marcelo was describing those garbage cans, basically are rubbish containers, basically from like a NASA project, which basically has like an antenna on it, which has all these gadgets associated with it, to the sticker, that really kind of encapsulates the same value proposition, same outcomes, just with more minimal maintenance and very low friction, kind of highlights how different regions approach smart cities. So I think that you find in North America, it's much more commercially focused, where large corporates have let's just call it more sway in terms of defining what procurement models look like, what's actually needed, what the purpose of that is, and generally operates in different silos. So the rubbish is different than the mobility, which is different than this. And those things have a tough time communicating with one another, while at the same time, they're very rich and very contextualized in terms of their technological superiority, in terms of the kind of call it gadget level. Whereas in Europe, where Marcelo was kind of just speaking to, more broadly speaking, whether it be Stockholm or other places, it's much more collaborative. It's much more about the collective. It's kind of built into their DNA, where these crowdsourcing of solutions and putting the money behind what the people basically crowdsourced as what they define as value really dictates what gets procured and what gets implemented. And then in Asia, in emerging markets, much more top down. So I find that similar to, or like Europe is similar to North America in the sense that there's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of like red tape, there's a lot of, it comes with its struggles. But with Asia, the beauty of it is it's very top down in the sense that federal speaks one way, that then travels to industry, and then that travels to the startup community. So it's all kind of contextualized in one kind of straight path. So for example, like if you look at, China's usually the example people use, but like let's say you have South Korea, where emerging technology like blockchain is part of like, on a federal level, it's part of the national security mandate, right? So that means that industry can then like grip onto that. It's like, okay, this is where we're going to invest our money because this is where our national identity stands. And then all of a sudden they start educating people, they start producing pilots, they start putting capital behind different business units. The government then matches that investment with investment in different innovation parks, investment in different development communities, investment in the education system. And then startups then obviously see value in that to service cities because they know that there's going to be business there. They know there's going to be repetitive business there. There's going to be contracts there. So it creates this culture where everyone's kind of aligned. So that's where I see kind of emerging markets approach smart cities differently based on how much federal involvement there is, and then culturally speaking, how these kind of regions are built in terms of their collaboration models.
Okay, interesting. And so Marcelo, regarding the UN, how can they facilitate with more pragmatic solutions that are kind of adapted to the local needs?
I would split that into multiple segments. I think at a federal, national level, sometimes getting out of the way is the best thing they can do. I'll try to understand that legislation, and I'm not trying to come across as a libertarian here, but every time you add a new piece of legislation, it's kind of a brick that will come with another brick on top. And then it's much harder to remove older legislation, and it gets complex, and you end up in a situation where at the federal level, in most nations, you want to be extremely careful. You want to stimulate the innovation. You want to make sure that the funds are available. You have certain types of subsidies or rebates, but it's never one solution fits all, because all politics are local. Like you may have the kind of situation where in some areas of a country